This is AV SuperFriends On Topic, a 30-minute monthly roundtable focused on a single topic. This discussion will be opinionated, to the point, and saturated with our well-known blend of painfully won expertise and deeply ingrained immaturity. For May 2022, it's the AV SuperFriends On Topic. Welcome back, everybody. Time for another Friday afternoon podcast adventure. It's Friday where I am. I hope it's Friday where you are. If not, please wait until the next Friday, then start listening again. My name is Chris Dector. I'm joined today by Jamie, Marc, Justin, and Larry. And on today's show, we're going to talk about our relationships with vendors, integrators, and consultants. But first, there's no news. It's a trick.
No news today.
We're going to get right into it. We've decided that A, we can't find a news story that really fits this topic, and B, we really all want to share a lot about this topic. So we're going to just jump right into the discussion with the discussion is vendor management and whatever that means. Now, as we were making notes on this, I titled that because it's something that I believe, Jamie, you actually suggested this like a year and a half ago, that we do a show titled Firing Your Integrator, or maybe How to Best Work with an Integrator, but we do it from a cynical perspective. And so I think that's a good opportunity.
Do we do it from a cynical perspective, or is that just the way it is?
That's a good opportunity to talk about that exact relationship on today's show. So rather than talk about vendors, which could be manufacturers or sales or any of that, we're going to focus, I think, on integrators and consultants, because that's, as higher ed AV managers, that's who we deal with most. So let's just open that up. Who wants to start on this? Because I think we've all got notes, except Marc, who hasn't written anything down, but I'm sure he has lots to share.
No, I'll just chime in.
He's just going to chime in. Okay. Who wants to start on what do you find as far as of value working with local integrators and consultants, or where are your challenges? Let's just open it wide open and see where we want to start with that.
Well, I think first we need to establish that if you haven't heard us before, most of us do our own in-house design, install. A lot of us do our own programming and things. So some of you that are listening don't have a lot of the luxuries that we do. So we're trying to kind of point out that you can do this on your own, but you can hybridize your working environment. But just because I don't want some people to be turned off, because well, you guys all do your own. It's easy to fire an integrator if you all do it yourself. Well, we had to get there somehow. And I think
I would disagree with that
statement. Point out.
That even those of us who do internal integrations and do our own design, programming, engineering, and all the rest, you're still leaning on integrators at times to do a lot of the work. So
I think you have to in this day and age, with just the amount. Yeah.
I've got like an 80-20 split this summer where I'm relying on some integrators that I've built good relationships with to do some of the projects because I don't have the bandwidth.
And I think that's probably a common sentiment that you're hearing across the board. Everybody's just crushed by the amount of what they need to do. And I think it's a matter of how do you try to get as much done as you possibly can, and being mindful of where you need to outsource kind of your time and materials to get the broader net. And I think everybody's going to be dealing with it somewhere, unless you have the luxury of 100 employees like kind of waiting for all this work. But there's not a lot of institutions that have that level of bandwidth available to them. So I think I don't know if you're alone. If people are out there listening, like if you're accomplishing everything and you have 200 plus spaces and you have like 6 people, let me know how you're doing it completely on your own. But I think this day and age, everybody has to.
You just let those support calls go. That's how you do it.
Yeah. If you're not doing everything, if you're not doing all the tiers, and you're not just in tiers because you're doing all the tiers, maybe.
Yeah, I think we found a good balance. This is actually one thing that we do really well at Western. I think 10 years ago plus, I don't exactly remember, we stopped asking for solutions from integrators. So yes, we have integrators that help us, but we split our RFPs into 2 RFPs, one for labor only and one for boxes. We do all the designs, all the programming, configuration, and we don't do as much heavy lifting anymore. We actually hire a local general contractor that works with the university quite a bit to even hang TVs and sometimes hang projector mounts if he's in the room, a lot of screen installs, and get that heavy lifting out of the way. We have our own cabling group. So they come through and pull all of our cabling. So it's kind of a divide and conquer when you're talking about boots on the ground. But as far as solutions, we're not asking for any solutions anymore. It's just much easier that way to kind of control everything. There's ways to do that through proper vendor management relationships and, good communication back and forth. Because I know, Larry, you do ask for solutions from time to time, and you have that good vendor relationship.
Well, I think part of that is like for the esports project we just did. There's some expertise that I can learn about, but I don't know as much as they know. And they're exposed to a lot more opportunities to really dive into those niche markets. And it's good to have some expertise that you can rely on in those situations. It's the same thing, we get stuck in our standards. Yeah, we're constantly looking at our standards and redoing our standards. But a good partnership with a vendor, they might work with 10 different universities. I know back when I was in commercial, I had 10 universities as my clients. And that was before the internet, before the HETMA and all those, where you had the opportunities to reach out and directly talk to them. But, I would tell different universities what was working at other places and connect them with different groups just to help expose them to.
Yeah. See, if we had a project that I felt like we lacked in knowledge, I probably wouldn't ask for a solution even then. I would talk to you all, talk to peers, and I would also talk to manufacturers. And I still wouldn't get to that point of asking somebody to design something for us.
Oh, and I'm not asking them to design, but it's good just to find out what other people are using. Then I can go explore that because, you get in your standard, you get in your ecosystem, and you might not always be aware of what else is out there.
Would you rather have an integrator build a standard build or a very unique one-off build?
Wait, when you say build, do you mean design build or just come in and follow instructions?
Either or. I think it's open to the group here. Like, to me, I almost would rather have a solid design and just outsource a standard build versus a highly customized one-off. But that's just myself.
I would rather do the customized one-off myself so I could go through it and make sure.
You would do it yourself, not hire out, right? Okay.
Design it myself. And the way we hire labor, just so to be clear on this, our guys are working in tandem with the hired labor on site, where our installers are now managing the other installers, if you will. So it's not where we would hand over a design package and say, okay, go do this. Let me know when you're done. That's not really how we're working. It's the same process.
No one is doing that, but
yeah. Yeah, it's the same process. We just fluctuate or decrease our labor as we need to, right?
Okay. So, Justin, you defined early on in your comments there a few minutes ago, you defined two distinct phases of a project in the sense where you say, we prefer to do, two distinct responsibilities and scopes. We do all the consulting, the design, the engineering, the programming, the configuration, and then we have outside labor assist with cable pulls, terminations, and mounting stuff and building racks and that sort of thing.
It's a mixture, yeah. For the labor,
I think that's not an uncommon distinction. Where you draw that line on a project, and I would absolutely agree that's definitely where you want to start. I think a lot of schools, and I'll say the university I'm standing at right now has done for the past 10 plus years. They've outsourced all of that, especially the knowledge work. And that's really where we see some challenges, because to the point where local departments here, your history department, physics department, whoever, will contact the integrator directly, have them come out, walk the site, spec stuff. I don't even know about it until it shows up and there's an issue and they want us to come fix it. Now, I've been working for the last 8 months very hard to fix that, because that is absolutely not what you want to do. You functionally outsourced your own job. But most importantly, they've given away the keys to the kingdom from the standpoint of, if you're going to have an integrator be a part of your install team or be part of own the install side of a project or be part of a project that way, that's different. But I would never give up that consulting, design, engineering side of things, even if it's just the initial to get to understand what that scope is, what the users are. Because at the end of the day, as the employee at the university, you're the one who is responsible and owns it. So yeah, I think there's a lot of schools who do give away those keys, and I would encourage them all to fight to get that back.
Well, it's not only that, but it's we all know that these integrators have these sales quotas and they have to sell X amount of gear. And we've all talked about it. If you do a turnkey design, normally, from what I've seen and what I've heard out of all of us, is that becomes inflated with parts and pieces that you actually did not need, so that they can, pay off their vans and their office rentals and their promotions and all that good stuff.
And
the yachts, right?
I need a new one.
The Russian yachts, they got to pay those off. So,
my yacht
it's a whole thing.
I need a new dry one, please. So maybe let's get into that as far as if we were going to be making recommendations, because I'm looking through our comments here, and a lot of it is kind of recommendations or maybe suggestions we would make to integrators and consultants, because I just had a meeting yesterday to review some consultant plans where there's like a hodgepodge of random stuff in there, and it's like, why are you speccing a QSC camera and audio processor, but then your control processor is a Crestron? Like, why are you mixing these modes? Very strange choices on equipment selection. Now, I'll just go in and override all that because we're not playing that game here. But it does make me wonder, to your point about, are they getting better pricing on certain things, or are they attempting to follow institutional standards but then deviating when they feel like it? So what sort of advice would we give to some of these integrators and consultants to say from the other side, hey, if you're working with a university, here's some things to do and things not to do?
Here's number one rule for me. Ignore your quotas when you're thinking about designing for an institution. Do what's right and stop thinking about what you have to do to make money during that quarter. That's the experience I've seen.
So I think for me, it's setting that expectation with an integrator that you expect that they are at some level keeping track of what university level pedagogies are and how your stuff can fit into it. You don't have to know all the nitty-gritty details, but I'm a little tired of getting sent solutions that really don't fit anybody or any teaching style. It just looks pretty. I just have that expectation. If you're selling to higher ed or K-12, I don't really care. Have some semblance of idea about what they're expecting or how they could possibly use this in real world applications, not just what the marketing video showed.
I think the thing I expect is if I have the business relationship with a vendor somewhere and we're working together, and then another department goes direct, even though they're not supposed to, but somehow they do, and they want something that's outside of the university standards as I've explained it to the vendor, then I want them to let me know and to make sure that doesn't get installed as design. Like, schedule a meeting, do something to make sure that these weird one-offs that we have to support, because it doesn't affect them, but it affects the relationship. And if you're going to keep enabling that type of behavior, then I'm going to find other vendors to work with.
Yeah, like specifying the little Nook all-in-wonder Nook machines that aren't allowed on our campus network. It's like, thanks, you just screwed us.
Two things, Larry. I think where you touched on to begin with is if there of the 7 people that are listening to this show right now, if one of you are a vendor and or integrator or find yourself in that jumble of folk, do me a favor. Before you bid on something or something like that, give me a call or an email and let me talk to you about how we operate here first, just so you can see a little bit of our ecosystem and our infrastructure and our culture, and then get to know you, because then you can see what's important, what we do. And the second piece I want to kind of say is the demarcation. Understand where the sweet spot of why you're calling them in the first place. And I find myself leaning on outside integration design firms for like capital P projects, the larger like the bigger projects, because I don't want to be in the quagmire of having to do CAD crap and adjustments and changes and all that stuff all day long. But they know their demarcation is like the input point. They're not talking about boxes and all that other stuff. Like they're like infrastructure and modifications as the process goes along. And that's my sweet spot. It may not be the same for everybody, but they're really not even doing the boxes. They're just doing the documents on like the core infrastructure pieces using those standards.
It's a good point. So if you are working through your procurement office and you're going down to bid or looking for quotes from various competitive quotes, sometimes you'll get some information back or quotes and pricing back from manufacturers, integrators, and folks that you've worked with. But other times there's just somebody out of the blue. It's just kind of a cold, they just drop some stuff in there. And sometimes, and I've had this experience where their pricing is way out of band. And I'm looking at that, and there's stuff like, I'll give an example. I bid one out several years ago and came back, and one of them was like $30,000 or $40,000 higher. And I was like, how are they that far off? And I was looking through, it's like, did they make a mistake? Is there a typo in here or something? Well, they had, as part of that, quoted like 30 or 40 hours of engineering time. I'm like, I handed you a complete set of drawings, complete schematics, elevations, detailed drawings all, across the board, plans, reflected ceiling plans, everything. What are you engineering? Now, if you want to throw in there on your bid, you want to spend 3 or 4 hours reviewing to ensure that engineering is correct or whatever, that's fine. But 40 hours, you're saying a design engineer needs to spend an entire week reviewing a completed system that I gave you so you can bump your quote up to the point where now I'm not even going to look at that seriously. It's just, it's kind of a strange relationship. And I don't know, do they get away with that at other schools and people don't notice? Do they sneak stuff in there? And I've seen other things from this same integrator, who again I won't mention, but reach out to me by email. Happy to tell you who it is. Where you ask them for a quote on installation. I need you to purchase some of this stuff and install it. Very simple. And they come back with a huge amount of, so they don't line item out. They just put one price at the top, and then there's a huge amount of stuff in there for, system design and engineering. And I was like, none of this is happening in this
50-foot HDMI cables.
Well,
no, they're not even telling me what the prices are, or what the individual parts are. They're just a huge amount of stuff in there that I'm going, what is happening with this? And then I have departments going, well, why is this one like twice as much as the others? Like, because they're ripping you off. That's why.
So what I've heard you all say, and you've all said it differently, and I can sum it up by basically saying if the integrators correctly identified and engaged the right stakeholders on each campus, they would be much more successful.
And if they were willing to exactly, yes. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Engage the correct people, but be willing to take suggestions or information from those conversations. Because if you say, hey, we're designing a new building for a university, and the building is the humanities building, and that means you're going to end up meeting with probably 2 associate deans and some department chairs and the IT guy. That's not the right people to talk to. That's your ultimate, that's your project champions and those who are sponsoring the project, but that's not the end users, nor is that the people who are going to have to support that stuff. So find out who supports it and find out what are they comfortable supporting with, what can they support, and build towards that. Because it doesn't, to your exact point, Justin, it doesn't gain you anything to come out with some crazy one-off off-the-wall stuff, which is fantastic, but isn't something the university ever uses again. They're not going to call on you. So
yeah, I think kind of going back and looking at some of the things that I've done with the integration stuff is, understanding, when you're engaging likely with the person that's writing the check, you're not thinking about, well, who else out there needs to know what's going on. And you start to realize, you ask questions, well, who's going to support this stuff? Is it us or is it somebody else? And by asking the right questions, your stakeholder pool should grow, I would think.
We have a really, I think something to do too on both sides is that if you, as the school personnel, have found that you have a particular vendor that really works well with you, create that bridge. What is, and integrators, most of you are going to be pretty, equal in what you're proposing, unless you're sneaking stuff in or you're just way out of whack. Make that relationship with the us, the Jamie of whoever institution. Because what we've gotten into in my school is that we do have a preferred vendor. And basically, we make the handoff. Even if it's a project that's well outside the scope of what I can do, I don't just tell the department or the school or whoever, go reach out to SKC or CTI or whoever, right? I say, hey, look, here's our preferred vendor, okay? And I make that connection with that engineer, that salesperson, because I have now worked with them closely enough that they do know what most of my standards are. They do know what my expectations are. And also the end user has an easier time going through all the mire of paperwork because it's just a one-hand handoff. And everybody's just kind of comfortable with the situation. And you usually get something A, you can support, and B, the other person's happy with. And you didn't have to do a whole lot of work with it, but it all funnels through you, and you don't have these people out there just doing it on their own, and you find out after the fact that they bought something.
I think part of that is we've all had versions of these vendors and or outside suppliers that I often feel look at higher education as a slow-moving target, and they look at it as an opportunity to make money here, to really go. And I think there's a conflict of interest. I think all of us serve our institutions, and we're not looking at it for the profit piece of this, right? We are in business roles, but we're not trying to make money off of our classrooms while we install them. But that's not the way the integrators are looking at our spaces. They need to make money, right? And so we're already set up for conflict. And so if you're one of those 7 people listening, again, understand we're gonna see it. We're gonna find it, right? We're gonna know that you put this piece in there, or this widget, or this hotkey that wasn't our standard. And rather than do that, why not just be transparent up front? Don't try to find ways to nickel and dime yourself into success and be profitable. Because if you're dealing with an institution that has on-site folks who do this type of knowledge work and building, we're going to find it. And then why create that situation where we can actually just be more mindful?
By doing that, they're absolutely not going to win future business.
Right.
Because I'm going to say, oh, yeah, I have 3 or 4 to choose from. Because even in a small town like Laramie, Wyoming, I have 6 integrators who are within 2 hours that I can talk to. And if one of them burns me on a project, they may not get an invite to the next one, sort of thing. Now, if it's a public bid, they can go find it, but we can put our thumb on the scale a little bit there.
It's not the time to be opportunistic in your bidding and building.
That's a really easy way for us also to just use you as the box house, right? I mean, we send you and you put your little bit of margin on there, and you just have to key in the numbers and hit send, right? Process the PO. So there's reoccurring revenue all the time if you have that initial good outreach. If I have somebody that comes in and doesn't treat me right, or half-ass it, or tries to squeeze extra stuff in there, I don't box sale anything from them ever. I'm done. I don't care if it was only a 2% markup for you, or 1 or a 0.5%. No, because I know, that adds up. I mean, we still spend millions of dollars every year on product that they never have to install. They just have to enter it into a computer and hit.
Is that the popular use that everybody around the horn here that kind of use? Do you do most of it just box sales? Is that how you're?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
90,
when I got
90%.
here last year, like I said,
100%.
we have an integrator we worked very closely with for many, many years, and they are okay. However, when you need to purchase something, which is like, hey, I need to purchase stuff from these guys. There's no checking of pricing. There's no looking around. There was no verifying. So one of the first things I did was spin up relationships with some of these other companies, and I explicitly told them, right now, I'm just interested in buying gear and stuff, and it's box sale. And if you're okay with that, here's kind of what I need. And I've dumped huge amounts of orders through multiple companies on that stuff just to get that. Now, as that relationship builds, and they have all said, and we do integration, when those projects come up, and like to your point, Jamie, hey, I'm getting good pricing from these people. I'm getting good customer service. When something goes wrong, or I need an update, or we need something replaced, or whatever, they're Johnny on the spot with RMAs and all the rest. When I need actual integration projects, I'm going to reach out to them and say, I've now built a decent relationship just by buying stuff on that 2 to 5% margin, or whatever they're making there. I'm very happy with that. I'll continue to do so, but now here's an opportunity for them to do a little value add, as opposed to the, well, who else are you going to call? Somebody else? Yeah, watch me do that. So I am not exclusive to any particular integrator, and I'm happy to work with some as long as I have a good working relationship with it. But when that relationship sours, they're not the only game in town. So
and I think building trust through that easy process throughout the terms as we go is the gateway to success for folks. If you want to get involved and do more work on the university, you're doing box sales, like let's get a relationship going through that, and we'll talk about our communication. You'll see how it works, and that's a good avenue to come in and have success. And then as we gain that trust, then I'll throw some complete builds at you, right? And it's if I know I can get it, it's reliable. We have a good service record, so to speak. Then let's try them for this, right? And that's how you kind of get your foot in the door, so to speak.
And
as
on the box
you're
sale
okay
thing,
as the integrator, never getting the programming part of that, because that's the one thing. Like, I will outsource everything else except for design, really,
and configuration.
But the programming, I will not outsource that.
Yeah. Does anybody use vendors for support? I don't think any of us do.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Except for their warranty period, when I will go check it first.
Justin,
and say,
you're talking about people like
doesn't
responding to support calls, though, right?
Well, maybe, I don't know. So we've been offered, when we used to do the solutions thing, they would give us a quote and say, hey, we're going to be your support desk, and this is year 1, year 2, year 3, all the way through year 7 costs. And I'm like, I don't really feel comfortable with this because I don't know what I'm getting, right? Yeah. Guaranteed response time of blah. That just means you're going to pick up the phone. Yeah. I don't know what that means. So I was just curious.
And they're still going to, so that comes up every now and then at university. So keep in mind, if you work for the university, you're still going to be that tier 1, regardless of how you
the
have
fingers
some
are pointing at you no matter what. Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Regardless of how that contract is structured, it's still going to fall on you. So.
I remember we had an auditorium, and this was an older boss and previous at Western, but previous people. They thought it was going to be a good idea to have the consultant design the speaker system, and then I would design everything else, and they put the speaker right behind the lectern, and we still get complaints about it today. Why did you all let that happen? I'm like, I don't know what to say to that, right? So be careful by having an integrator design something so you're not at fault, can come back and bite you in the ass, because the fingers are always going to point at you because you're there at the university.
Yeah, there's always that piece that's like contractually. For bigger
as
projects,
the representative of the university, you should own that. I had to tell my team here. I was like, I said, first of all, do not have departments, to your question about support, do not have departments call the local integrator for support. That's wrong, because you've just outsourced your job. That's going to be a
problem. Yeah.
It is going to be a problem. Secondly, we, as the university team who supports the stuff, we own those spaces. If we need to interface with an integrator or manufacturer or somebody to get something done, that's fine. But all that stuff goes through us, so we know about it. And also, why are you giving up your own job to somebody else? Because if I need to cut salary lines, I can do that. So.
Right. Yeah, it's easy. I just make phone calls.
Yeah,
it's all remote. Do it all remote. But
I guess I would say general advice to universities and colleges listening: if you don't do everything in house already, start building towards that, certainly. But reach out to multiple integrators, multiple consultants, and get not just to shop around, but build those relationships with some, because it will happen, especially this year with supply chain stuff. You'll say, I need to get 5 projectors, and they say that's 16 weeks out, and you call another one, and they're like, oh yeah, we can get those in 2 weeks. Weird how that works. So distribution channels are different, and they may be able to come through, and you can build those relationships even just on gear sales and box sales of stuff. So absolutely reach out to others. Don't be reliant on any one single, even if you have a great working relationship with them. It only behooves you to shop around a little bit.
And I'll say, like, if you are in that vendor integrator role, be flexible. Like, there's opportunities to not have every little aspect of every little project. Lean into the things that we're telling you we can't do. Like, own that. We're looking for people to come provide solutions. If it's structured cable, if it's racks and stacks, whatever it may be, don't think you have to own every single bit of everything to have success. Like there's more than enough opportunity. So why not help out? Right? Like, we'll give you work, but just understand it may not be every little thing.
Some is better than none, right? Some money is better than none money.
Actually, right. I used to work at a university where they provided a design for the standard classroom lectern that had all the equipment, all the wiring already done. The vendor gave them a single part number for that entire lectern. We would order that part number. The vendor would build it and ship it complete to us, which worked real because at that particular university, there wasn't a ton of room for us to have a build shop to build everything we needed to do for the summer. And so there's always those weird opportunities, as Marc was talking about, that we might reach out to you. And that's an easy way to expand the business.
Right. Yeah. Get your foot in the door somehow, somewhere. So.
Well, I hope this was useful. We're trying to keep this short. So if you're an integrator or consultant, hopefully you had some useful information here. If you work at another university or college and you're trying to build that relationship with integrators, or try to build your own internal skill set and what you guys can and can't do, we're happy to talk about that more. You can always reach out to us. Happy to share our war stories, but a lot of it is hard fought, hard won, and sometimes takes a little bit of pushback on some of these integrators. So catch you next time. Thanks very much. Thanks for putting up with yet another episode of AV SuperFriends On Topic. You can contact us with questions, topic ideas, or general complaints at avsuperfriends.com.
Nice work, everyone. Sharp broadcast. Really good. Everyone on the floor as well. Really a lot of hustle. I liked it.
The opinions expressed by the AV SuperFriends are solely those of the individuals and do not represent their respective institutions, organizations, companies, or clients.